All right, everyone, we have to talk about Israel, Netanyahu, George Soros, and the nation of Hungary because the populist nationalist sort of groups there have been putting up posters with George Soros on them with the caption like, "Are you going to let him win?" Basically saying, oh, the Brussels and the globalists, they want to destroy Hungary. They want to destroy the Eastern European cultures because we have national pride. We have civic nationalism slash de facto kind of ethno-nationalism because they happen to be homogenous, more or less. Soros doesn't want that. He wants us to be easily abused by Brussels by destroying our cultures like he's doing in Germany. And they stand against that. Now, the leftists in Hungary, the bureaucrats in Brussels, and a bunch of Soros organizations obviously said, this is anti-Semitism because George Soros is a Jew. Benjamin Netanyahu, the leader of Israel, top Jew in the world, has to come out, feels compelled to come out, and has to tell the world as though it wasn't self-evident. No, criticizing George Soros is not anti-Semitism. The fact that he happens to be a Jew doesn't mean he has good ideas. Go ahead and criticize him all you want. He has to rein in Israel's own foreign ministry that's coming out condemning, lambasting these groups, saying, oh, you're Nazis, evil, bigots. He says, tone it down. Go ahead and condemn anti-Semitism where it's present in Hungary. But let him put up these posters. We don't want George Soros either. And then Netanyahu comes out and says, oh, maybe we need an anti-Soros law here too. People are getting pissed off at globalists. Here, you've got the seed of Jewishness in the entire world saying, yeah, fuck it. We're going to side with the nationalists of Europe. And I think I know why. I think it goes deeper than just Netanyahu's worried Soros is going to move in and like Femin will come and harass him and throw like octopus ink on him or something. It's deeper than that. I think I know what's happening. I think Netanyahu is much more worried about the fact that the right of return exists. Now, Israel is essentially a civic nationalist state. That is, there are multiple ethnic groups that claim Jewishness under their doctrines. It's a civic system. It has an Israeli culture and so forth that has spawned in the last near century. Here's the problem. Let's say that Western Europe, where you have lurid tales of Jews being like harassed and attacked by Islamists now because so many of them are there. Let's say that problem moves into Eastern Europe, which has even larger Jewish populations. What could happen to Israel? Oh yeah, a few million Jews decided to move in over the course of a few years. Where are they all going to live? How are you going to provide them with jobs? What does that say about their voting tendencies? These are Europeans, not people from within the Middle East. They've never necessarily even been to the Middle East. They're European in extraction. What happens if a few million of them, are they going to start some new political movement? So Netanyahu's out of a job. I think he's worried about that. Totally overhauls the political system, the legal system. What happens if they dick around with the religious system there? Say, oh no, we're going to be much more liberal, these Orthodox Jews, and muzzle them. What if they become hyper-religious? What if they become warmongering? What if a million other things happen? You've got one Jewish state, you've got one chance to actually make it function and be stable. It's kind of fragile. It's not like, oh yeah, Christendom or Islam or something like that, where you've got multiple nations that indulge in it as their state religion. You've got one Jewish state. I think he's a little politically concerned there. I think he's worried because I think he looked and he said, well, these nationalist groups have always been in Eastern Europe. It's just they didn't have so much fervor. They didn't really have an enemy to fight against. No one was suggesting that they had to take 1 million migrants or something like that. Nobody was suggesting that until recently. So you had all these supposed Nazis. The groups that the liberals in the West want to cast off as Nazis were already there. How many times have they burned a synagogue down lately? How many times have you heard of a group of Jewish school children getting accosted by dudes with baseball bats and swastika tattoos? It doesn't really happen. Whether it's Eastern or Western Europe, doesn't really fucking happen. Because you have a secular rule of law, so that if somebody is potentially a violent bigot, they don't do anything, because they're like, oh, I'm not going to go to jail for it. Yeah, I hate these Jews, but, I don't want to go get sodomized in prison for the next 20 years, so I'll leave the issue alone and shitpost online. But then you have Europe taking in millions of people from cultures where it is considered acceptable to be bigoted against Jewish people. See, there's a problem. And it's the same fucking problem that I've mentioned before with regards to the migrant crisis in Europe. Refugees aside, because people, at this point, I'm used to the fact that people confuse the two. I'm not even going to get into it. So we're just going to say migrant crisis because it's the bigger crisis involved. Who cares? Too many people on the left and on the right can't differentiate these groups. Fuck it. I'm not going to explain it another time for other people's benefit. Here's the thing. You got women's rights in Europe. People are like, well, women should be equal to men, and they can do what they want. They can date who they want. They shouldn't have their genitals mutilated. They're not sex objects. Feminism. Yeah, that's all well and good. That's just wonderful. European social progress. See, now you've taken in millions of people who think that that's an ass-backwards way to think about the world and say, women's rights? What the hell are you talking about? Women aren't capable of exercising rights because they're dumb. Gay rights. Oh, we're going to have gay marriage, or at least we're not going to harass people for being homosexuals, whether or not we have gay marriage. We know if some people are gay. Who cares? Let them be gay. Let them be left alone. Ireland, I think, didn't they get gay marriage like last year? And then you have these people moving in that come from countries where homosexuals are tortured and thrown off buildings, or beheaded, or they have their dicks chopped off, or something like that. You're thrown into the crocodile pit. A wonderful job, Western Europe. You've thought this through really, really well. I'm sure that people will assimilate to cultures that are basically the mirror opposite of their own. Because somehow they're going to forget everything that they were taught from the moment that they were children by everyone they ever perceived of as a religious or social or familial authority. They're going to forsake that because Europe is just so fucking wonderful. You're so superior to the rest of the world. It's the same old ethnocentrism you get from the Germans and the French. All the time throughout history, they do the same friggin' thing over and over. We're gonna go educate the savages. We're so superior, but you're a Nazi because you disagree with us. Something like that. It's so dumb. And so Netanyahu sits there and says, I think he starts sweating and shaking when he thinks of the possibility of 1 million Eastern Europeans migrating into Israel and exercising their right of return. Now, right now, there's no reason for them to do that. They're like, well, yeah, fine culture here. There's fairly low taxes, historically speaking, when I compare it to the rest of the world. I have a job, I have a family, I have a commie block apartment here. Why do I want to leave my commie block behind? I just want to drink some vodka or something like that. And then you get a destabilized Eastern Europe because Soros is successful, the nationalists lose, and a bunch of multiculturalists take command, and it begins to look like Berlin or London-stan or something like that. Whoops, there's a little bit of a problem. You see, here's the other problem. Demographically speaking, this is the case in the US as well as Europe. Individuals who are Jewish tend to be more of an urban population than the general population. It's just a fact. It has something to do with educational differentiation. They tend to be, as well, have a higher proportion of like master's degrees and PhDs. You got a PhD in physics, you're probably not living in some little farming community. And these urban areas also attract, unfortunately, here's the case, as we see with London, Paris, Berlin, and so forth, also tend to attract all of the migrants because they want that infrastructure, they want that urban feel. For some reason, I don't understand what it is, like immigrants throughout human history have always gone to like urban areas. I don't know why you'd want to go to the big city. I guess the idea is you get a better job, but you also pay more for your housing. Should be living in a small town somewhere if you want to be left alone. Yeah, you've seen civil war for years in Syria. Go out to the middle of the Black Forest or something where it's nice and peaceful and you never have to worry about hearing a plane flying overhead and getting, have a flashback and you think you're about to get bombed or something. Just go out in the woods or something. Trust me, it's a much better lifestyle. But all these large urban Jewish populations, Krakow or something like that, all of a sudden they're going to have like street battles with people who are trying to build mosques next to the synagogue and keep harassing them and doing the call for prayer and stuff like that. Netanyahu, I think, is worried about that. He's like, yeah, these Jewish individuals, probably most of them would rather move to the U.S., but the U.S. is upping its populism too, which means most of them are probably going to come here. And they've already got a steady trickle of Jewish people from Western Europe going back to Israel, including people who migrated from Israel. They went to Europe. In the old days of the multicultural immigration policies the very, very tolerant ones. They go to Europe because they're like, well, things cost less here, and You know, maybe the weather can't be better, especially if you're moving to like the fucking British Isles or something, but whatever. They go to Europe because they want wealth or, you know, pension or whatever. They're going back to Israel and they're taking other people with them because they're afraid. I'd be afraid too. I feel very sorry for them. I feel sorry for everybody. I feel sorry for the refugees. They get lumped in with a bunch of welfare leeches and terrorists. I feel sorry for the Jews because, I mean, they're going to be openly harassed in Western Europe. Now, people like Soros want that, and Merkel want that to happen in Eastern Europe, too. It's almost like, is Merkel trying to force the Jews out of Europe? Wouldn't that be a trip? East German Merkel, who says, oh, you're a Nazi, everybody who disagrees with me a Nazi. She comes out one day, she's dressed just like Adolf Hitler and says, oh, the Jews are gone out of Germany, now we can take over the world. Haha, Uncle Adolf. It was a wonderful plan the whole time. With people in the United States increasingly declaring Merkel the leader of the free world, the leader of the West, I think it's starting to make people a little bit nervous. You have to be a little bit nervous looking around the world right now. So I have to give props to Netanyahu, who I really don't like. In fact, I kind of hate the dude because he's, you know, shitty. He's totally right on this situation. No, criticism of George Soros is an anti-Semitism. You don't have to have a strong opinion one way or the other on Israel or Jewishness in general to realize that George Soros wants to kill off every person in the world. If he could press a button and homogenize everyone so that there was no culture, no borders, no anything of significance in the world, he'd probably press it. Yeah, it's at the point. The leader of the Jewish people is like, fuck George Soros. I'm not surprised. I'd say screw him too. He's just a madman. The funny thing is, on the drug war, George Soros is actually right. He's like, oh yeah, let people do drugs, decriminalize it all. Yeah, that's wonderful. Everything else he suggests is pure poison for any culture that'll listen to him. That's about all. Peace out.